It's a Memorial Day weekend as the baseball races start to heat up on the Baseball Talk Radio Show.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the great Rich Baxter. Rich, happy Memorial Day weekend to you.
Happy Memorial Day weekend right back, Gary Mack, and the great Gary Mack, I might add. We're finding ourselves in the middle of this Memorial Day weekend. It snuck up on us very fast, and thank God for all the veterans that gave their all for this country. Of course, that's what the meaning of Memorial Day is. Make sure you go out and pay attention to that. If you see a serviceman or woman in your midst, you want to thank them. Of course, family, friends, and those that passed away from service to their country. Of course, a nice little flag at the cemetery or something might be nice, and just to memorialize them and thank them for their service to this country.
Yes, indeed, Rich, and it's not about sales. So, get out there and thank the veterans that, as you said so well, served us and honor the people that have passed away in the service of our country, protecting our rights to be able to do something like this, a podcast.
That's true. A lot of people take this for granted. I know I normally do. You don't think about these kind of things. In some foreign countries, you can't get away with speaking your mind, even if it's something trivial like baseball, let alone politics. But yeah, the baseball world is heating up this week, Gary Mack, and I think we're starting to see a little bit more of what we're going to expect in the next 6 weeks of baseball with these nice baseball races we're starting to see.
Well, after the weekend my team has had, I hope we're not getting to see what what we're going to expect at least from them. But yeah, the teams are heating up, races are heating up. We're getting closer, and it's only like a month and a half or roughly to the trading deadline. So it's going to come fast. And as you said, we're at Memorial Day. And of course, that means special uniforms and special hats for everybody, because the MLB loves to hear that ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yes, they do. But in this certain instance, a lot of the ka-ching is donated. A lot of the monies that are raised from the sale of certain uniforms, hats, and things are distributed to charities. So it's a good thing. And if you're watching our YouTube video version of the show, I've got a cap up that we saw on all major league teams this weekend. Pretty cool cap. I think I had mentioned to Gary Mack that I was going to get one, but I've since changed my mind on it, Gary. I'm just not a big fan of it. You had asked me a question on the 5 stars. What does that signify? A show or two ago, and I did some research on it, and it's for the 5 branches of the military in the United States. So that's what that signifies on the hat.
Very interesting. And yeah, you did mention it. And what changed your mind about that, Rich?
I just didn't like all the camouflage, and I started to read some of the comments on a couple websites. One of them is sportslogos.net, and it wasn't like these hats and even the whole uniforms were taken in such great regard by a lot of sports fans. a lot of people were on the fence about it, with especially with the military look and having baseball players out on the field dressed as, representing military, so to speak. Not that it's a bad thing, not at all. I sort of get it. I get that, our people in charge of the MLB and all, they want to honor our veterans by having these type of uniforms and thing. And by the way, it's been the sixth year that the MLB has went with full uniforms. If you and I remember years ago, Gary, when you know they didn't even do hats for special occasions like this, and holidays like this.
I don't. Yeah, I think years ago though, I don't know. The market wasn't there, or they just didn't think there was a market. And now it's big business. People want the official jerseys. They want the official hats. Um, and I think that's what really spurred this on. And as you said, it goes to a good cause, and they have the opportunity. I was not a big fan of the look of the hat. It to me, it's a little drab. Um, Not crazy about it. I'm sure they could have come up with something else. I'm looking forward more to the July 4th hats that are coming out. It may check those out a little bit more. And the Father's Day hats are available now, as are the Mother's Day hats. But I happen to have another hat that's similar in color to the Father's Day hat for the Brooklyn Cyclones, so I don't really want to duplicate that. So it's that North Carolina baby blue look.
Right.
It's nice, but I don't know. I don't want to duplicate something that I already have. So I'm gonna check out the July 4th one. But I wish they put them on sale now, so you'd have it by July the 4th.
Yeah, if sometimes you can go up to the lids.com site. That's where you can order these hats in advance most of the time. I'm not sure if they have the July 4th ones already for sale, but yeah, as you said, it gets hard to find at your local hat store. I don't know what sizes you shop for, but I know my size is usually always the one that's out. And they want to refer you to another store that might be 20 miles away. You might not want to make the trip for that. To
I
try.
do everything online, Rich.
But yeah, these hats.
The Met shop or MLB shop.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. But yeah, there was some criticisms of the camo look of the hat. I was reading on the. It's a great website. I don't know if all our listeners are aware of it or not, but it's run by a guy in Canada, I believe. It's called sportslogos.net. It was started in 1997, and it's one of the foremost experts on all uniforms, from baseball, hockey, soccer, football, basketball. He gets all the lowdown on all the logo changes and everything. So if you get a chance, stop by there, sportslogos.net. The guy's name is Chris Kramer that came up with this website. And try to click on an ad for him once or twice. I know with these private websites, that's the only way these guys can make a dollar or two. So if you do go over to the website, kind of patronize it a little bit. I don't know, a lot of people don't like ads. They have ad blockers and things like that. But a lot of these websites aren't run by multimillionaires. They're people that just started a website and try to get some money back through the ads. So check it out over there. And Gary Mack, I did a little research even on the Phillies were playing the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend, and Toronto certainly wore a version of the cap as well, but theirs had 4 maple leafs on it. Which signifies that they have 4 branches of the military in Canada, and they wanted to honor each one with the little maple leaf on the side. So that's pretty cool. little twist to their uniform there. Of course, they're from Canada, so. Um, but I did some other research on that website, the sportslogos.net site, and this year in 2018, Gary, is one of the most anniversary patched years ever for the MLB, with a lot of teams following through with their anniversaries this year.
Yeah, I know some of them, Florida, Colorado, in their inception. I think LA is wearing a patch about the being out in LA. I think it's 60 years.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Tampa Bay, I think it's 20 years they're in existence.
20 years is correct. Yes. The Miami Marlins, 25 years. They started up in 1993. So a couple of Florida teams there with anniversaries. The San Francisco Giants, I found this to be amazing as well. Their 60th anniversary on the West Coast, 1958 through 2018, the same as when the Dodgers landed in LA, moving over from New York.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of couple other anniversaries here. The Royals, the Kansas City Royals, with a 50th anniversary patch this year on
Wow.
the side of both jerseys and caps. Another California team, the Oakland Athletics, mark 50 years this year in Oakland, 1968 to 2018. And they have some nice sleeve patches on the side of those home jerseys as well. So there was one team that just apparently has the patch on the side of the hats, the Colorado Rockies, with their 25th anniversary, um, with a patch on the side of the hats with their home games. 25 years.
Hmm. You know, it's scary because I can remember going to the old Yankee Stadium and seeing the Kansas City Athletics with Charlie Finley, and they had the gold uniforms on, and um, the blouse, you know, the sleeveless uniforms with the shirts, the color different shirts underneath, and really to think now they have 50 years. Did you say out in Oakland? That's
Yeah,
incredible.
50 years. If you're watching the YouTube version of the show, I cropped some of the logos and put them up on the screen for you to take a look at. But you could also just Google them as well. Just Google 2018 MLB anniversary patches, and you'll get a whole page of them. But yeah, 50 years, 60 years for the Giants, 50 years for the Athletics, and 60 years for the Dodgers. Wow.
Hmm.
That's a whole lot of anniversaries going on this year, especially. I kind of like those anniversary jerseys myself. I had bought a Mike Piazza one that I just recently sold not too long ago, and I believe it was the 2004 um, Mets jersey. There was a special occasion on that. I forget the exact amount of years, but I remember there was a special patch on the side of that jersey.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. So
Yep. So check it out. You can get yourself a patch. You can also buy those patches if you have an existing jersey that you want to maybe add a patch to, like that, or a couple patches if you want. Go over to the MLB.com store. You can buy them there. I believe they're like $15. Most of those patches, $14.99. Or at your local stadiums, you can pick them up as well. So check it out. You want to personalize something, you want to get something on a jacket or something like that, you can always buy that patch and just put it on yourself. Have somebody sew it on, or take it down to your local tailor shop, and I'm sure they'll put it on there for you.
pretty cool, pretty cool. And as we said, now I guess the next big thing will be Father's Day, and they'll have more uniform, another full uniform and hats, and then after that, I guess it's July the 4th.
Yeah, yeah. That season will just be rolling on from here. It seems like it takes a long time for me from the start of the season, the beginning of April, right up through Memorial Day. But after Memorial Day, it just sort of runs like summer. I mean, you get maybe what, 9, 10 weeks unofficially of summer, 12 weeks, somewhere around there. But it goes by like very fast. Of course, we have the MLB draft coming up right in a week or so. Um, June 4th through the 6th, I believe, is that. The Tigers have the first pick, Giants second, and then the Phillies with the third pick. So we're going to have a lot of stuff going on. Of course, over the next couple weeks, baseball races heating up, all kinds of talk about that. And I don't know, did you check out the game last night? I had some extra time, so I flipped on the Yankees versus the Angels on Fox Sports last night, and I was really treated to a game from Mike Trout. He went 5 for 5 last night, Gary, with 3 doubles and a home run, and he practically owned that stadium.
No, I didn't. I didn't get to see that, but I did hear that Mike Trout had a historical performance there. One great performance, and not surprising. He's the best player in the game, I think. And Bryce Harper's good, but he's still a tad behind Mike Trout, I think.
Yeah, they're going to be two sought after free agents, I'm sure. Trout won't be available till 2021. He's locked up in a $144 million contract right now. And I did some reading on him as well last night, Gary, during the game. His contract just kicked in this year, actually, that took him to the highest paid player in baseball at over $34 million a year. Did you ever think that a player would make $34 million in one season?
No, I never did, but I remember when they made a big deal out of the first $100,000 player. So,
Yeah.
or this, in the modern era, the second or third, because I think Babe Ruth may have gotten 100,000. I'm not sure. But when Mantle and Mays got $100,000 a year, it was like, whoa, nobody's worth that kind of money. And here we are now, 34 million.
Yeah, 34 million. What does that buy anymore?
I can buy a few things, Richard. Just can buy a few things.
Yeah, it must be nice. So, Trouty probably looking ahead to 2021. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about some players that may be available to move to different teams this year. But I started thinking to myself, that might be the natural home for a guy like Mike Trout to go to the Yankees. Wouldn't that be something if the Yankees landed Trout in 2021 as a free agent?
No, it would not. They have enough people. They don't need any more free agents.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know what the price would be, but if it's 34 million that Trout is getting for the next 3 years, what is the 2021 contract? 50 million times, he'll be 29, I believe, at that time. So you figure if you locked him up for the rest of his career, you would say an 8 to 10 year contract. What would it be? $500 million? I'm just.
I don't. I think the market has, resettled itself. I think last year was a big awakening. I think that's going to continue. And I think what you're going to see is you're not going to see a big, long contract like you have. You're going to see maybe 2 years at 37 or something along that lines. And I think that's the way it's going to work from now on. I don't know how they can keep paying these kind of salaries. And then the problem, of course, is if you pay him a certain amount of money and there's no money to give a support cast around him, what is the sense behind it? And I think the players are going to have to realize that too. Yes, there's no cap in baseball, but they do have that tax. And it just makes sense that if you're paying him 30% of your overall budget, it's just not going to work out. He's not going to have any support, no pitching or anything like that. So, what good is that then?
That's true, and it depends which team is going to have the deep enough pockets to sign him, and that's the shame of it all because there's only about 5 or 6 teams that would probably be able to afford him. A team like the Padres or somebody like that would never be able to afford him. Um, Milwaukee Brewers, clubs like that will be out of the race. I've heard a lot of chat in Philadelphia that they'd love to pick up a guy named Mike Trout. Of course, he's a local guy, and he spends his off time in the Philadelphia area, which is South Jersey, where he's from. But a lot of that is all pie in the sky. It's going to be the highest amount of dollars that are offered to Trout. I don't believe he would go just because he lives around here. He loves to travel. In fact, I follow him on Twitter, and every stadium he goes to next, he's excited to go. He's just tweeted out about Detroit, so I guess the Angels are heading over to Detroit next.
Yeah, I guess he'll like the interleague play then because he gets to see National League parks as well. But it's got to stop somewhere. I mean, and with all the emphasis now on farm systems and stuff, we may have seen a correction. Now he is a special player, but we'll get a better idea this or next offseason with Machado and Harper going to free agency. If they do, if Harper doesn't re-sign with the Nationals, and I'm not sure Machado's going to re-sign with the Orioles. I think he will definitely be on the market, but that'll give us a foreshadowing, if you will, of what's probably going to happen in the future.
Yes, it will be interesting to see where there's a couple players end up. Again, a lot of players look at Boston. They just dropped Hanley Ramirez. Wasn't doing that bad, I didn't think, but they DFA'd him, put him out for assignment. He was batting over 200. I think about 265. I'm not sure exactly why the Red Sox put him out to pasture, but
I think it was money, Rich.
Yeah, earning the better part of $20 million. And at the age of 34 this year, he was batting 254. I'm on his page right now. RBI's 29 and 6 home runs. So, yeah, it might not have been a question of production. It might have been a question of money.
And he also had a clause in his contract. I can't remember the exact amount, but if he got 493 at bats, I believe he would get a bonus kicked in of money, and I don't think they wanted to pay that. And he may have you may take them to arbitration. It's tough to win those things though, because they can say that I forget who's playing first base for them now. Boy, names are slipping my mind today. But he's having a pretty decent year as well, better fielder, so they're happy with him. And then there's really nowhere to play him.
Yeah, through the magic of the internet, Mitch Moreland playing first base for the Red Sox. Yeah, I haven't really followed them too much. They're, of course, on fire, doing quite well there in the AL East, but I made a decision. And, the Phillies even have a guy that they signed for $20 million times 3 years. I think it was one of the worst signings they've made recently. But he's not even doing that well either in Carlos Santana, ex-Indians player. So, so far, a lot of people have been tolerant of what they've seen from him, but he's at the Mendoza line at batting 200 right now. 32 ribbies and 9 home runs, though. He did pick up on his home run hitting in the last 8 to 10 days. So that's made people a lot more happy about him so far.
And he's been a pretty good extra coach or whatever you want to call it in the clubhouse. He's been a good influence in there. So could be just that, that first year you come over after a big signing like that, you want to do a lot. And look, the Mets have got the same deal with Jay Bruce, who's been awful so far. After hitting 34 homers this year, he's on he's on a par to hit like 12 this year, or 20 or 15 or something. It's just he's just not getting the job done. And he played here last year before being traded. So it's a curious thing whether or not it's the contract or if he has an injury of some sort that then not saying. I'm getting to the point though, if you've got an injury, take him out of the lineup. You can't keep buying. You need a big bat. You need his bat in, but he's not hitting anyway. So what is the sense? Bring in some kid that maybe is hungry and wants to play, and it's gonna hit until he can get healthy. I mean, it's part of the thing we were talking before the show started with the Mets. Now, they're very frustrating because they do this all the time, and then I call him Scrappy Sandy, the general manager, because he's always searching the scrap heap and getting these washed out players. I even said on Mets Musings the other night that he's going to the Social Security office to see who's available, what ex-ball player is available, because he's bringing in all these guys 37, 38 years old, while the rest of baseball is bringing in young guys. Makes no sense to me. But all he said, it gets you nuts sometimes with the way they do things.
That's true. And as we were talking, the Mets picking up Jose Bautista, a prime example of someone that may have been out of baseball hadn't they gave him the call to come back. But we'll see. The Mets are still hanging tough despite playing some bad ball in the last week to 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks if you want to call it that. But yeah, certainly the Phillies experienced a taste of first place finally. And somebody had mentioned on the Phillies broadcast that they had 6 chances to take over first place so far this year. They've been that close, but yet last night was the first time that they were able to do that. So it only lasted one day. The Braves came back and trounced the Boston Red Sox and Chris Sale this afternoon. So they're back in first in the NL East. And we'll be previewing some of the races here towards the end of the show. But Gary, you have an interesting story, and I didn't read anything about it, but it was a interesting story that MLB did on the baseball.
Yes, MLB, Rich, they commissioned a study, and the commission, or whatever you want to call it, whoever did the study, indicated that baseballs, and they took the years from 2015 to 2017, and they came up with the conclusion that the baseballs were not juiced, but that changes in the aerodynamic properties of baseball resulted in greater carry and a home run surge during that period. While no definitive reason was given for the shift, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred issued a list of recommendations Thursday that the league will follow, most notably exploring whether humidors will be used to store baseballs in all 30 ballparks. The 10-person committee released results of its study on Thursday and found that Rawlings, which manufactures baseball for MLB, now this is the best. This is the best thing I've heard, achieved much greater precision than allowed by the MLB specifications. Well, but aren't you supposed to get, so what do they want? Sloppy stitches, sloppy work done? I mean, what are the MLB specifications? These are regarding parameters such as weight size and the ball's coefficient of restitution, whatever that is. It conducted laboratory testing of 15 dozen unused baseballs from 2013 to 2017 and 22 dozen game used balls from 2012 to 2017. StatCast data, which became available in 2015, was utilized to measure batted ball behavior based on launch angle, exit velocity, and other factors. Notably ruled that a change in batter behavior, the so-called fly ball revolution, to prompt many hitters to swing with a more pronounced uppercut or pitch selection. Instead, row committee member and theoretical physicist Leonard Lobno, the home run surge is not due to a juicier, bouncier ball or to a change in batter behavior, but to better carry, which result in longer fly ball distances and therefore more home runs.
Very interesting.
Now they did not reach a conclusion, but they made recommendations. So here's a list of some of the recommendations. Make updates to the existing production specifications of baseball, develop additional specifications for the aerodynamic properties of the ball, perform aerodynamic testing on baseballs, create standards for mud rubbing, a process by which new balls are rubbed down by home teams using a specific mud from the New Jersey area, form a scientific advisory council. That was some of the recommendations. In other words, they still don't know what the heck it is, and they're still going to look for answers. That's basically it. But the aerodynamic properties of the ball has changed.
It's very interesting. I was doing a little reading as you were talking here, and I found some Rawlings baseballs were examined and x-rayed. And of course, if you're watching our YouTube version of the show on the Baseball Talk Radio show, you'll see what a baseball is made of. You've got your outer protective cover, and then you have your yarn spun around that. And then you have a cork and rubber core in the center. So yeah, I guess, it's theoretical that things can be changed up rather quickly with a baseball, and you'd be none the wiser. You're just, seeing the exterior of a ball, but certainly they could have changed something on that to induce some better fly to the ball or things like that. So it's very scientific, and so far it seems like they say they're not purposely juicing them, but maybe the different manufacturing processes are being put into place where it's just happening naturally.
It could be. They got to revise their specifications or something. I don't know, but we've all seen players in the dugout taking a ball apart, and we've heard some of them say that the ball's definitely different, whether it be the stitching was tighter or in some instances the core was bigger or something. They don't want to admit that they juiced it at all, because then it kind of, I guess, makes the numbers look bad, and they don't want to do that. But there's something going on with that baseball, and you see balls hit sometimes that have no business going out, and they're gone, and it happens a lot. So
That's for sure. We'll keep our eye on that story. A very interesting one there with Rawlings, the maker of the baseball, and see what we can find out more for our listeners here on the Baseball Talk Radio show. Tune in. You can subscribe to the show on our iTunes feed, and our Podomatic feed experienced a little difficulty in the past couple of weeks. So I hope if you didn't hear an episode within the last 3 weeks or so, please go back and try to find them, because the shows were uploaded to the site. I'm not quite sure if iTunes experienced the same difficulty or not with our show, but we're up to show episode 3.11. as of tonight. So check it out. Subscribe on iTunes. Go over to the baseballtalkradio.com site. You can find Gary Mack's great show on the Mets called Mets Musings. A bunch of other ones. My Phillies Talk podcast has sort of been in mothballs. I haven't done a show in a while, but I plan to. Just been a little lazy with it, but ton of other shows. You got the Baseball PhD there, constantly producing shows. Atlanta Baseball Talk, a ton of shows over there. Japanese Baseball Talk, more baseball that you could listen to in a week. So check it out over there. All the latest shows are always updated there at baseballtalkradio.com, the home for great baseball radio talk shows.
And one more you didn't mention, Rich. And in fact, we have a message from one of the other shows on the network. Let's take a listen to that.
All right.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and baseballtalkradio.com, along with Mets Musings and other great baseball podcasts.
That sounds awesome. And I just dragged the grill out for Memorial Day myself, Gary. Fired up some hot dogs. And yeah, it's always great. I'll have to tune into the Baseball and Barbecue podcast to get me some, maybe a rib recipe or something.
Oh, they have some great things there. And the only problem I always say is after I listen to it, I'm always hungry after listening to it. So check it out at baseballtalkradio.com.
Yes, indeed. Len and our good friend over there at Baseball and Barbecue, Jeff, waving a hand to you guys. Great job, and glad to see that you're having so much fun with the show as well.
Yeah, they certainly are. And they're great guys, like you said. And take a listen.
All right, so we're heading into the home stretch of the podcast here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Let us remind you as well that you can become a sponsor of the show. Go over to our Patreon site, and if you're watching us on YouTube, that's going to be easy. Just watch Gary's front end to the podcast here. His logo. Support the show on patreon.com/baseball talk. It's all one word. Patreon.com/baseball talk. You can just give us $1 or $2 or $3 a month, $5 if you want to be a big spender, and you can donate towards our show. And we will be honest with you, we'll put it all back into the show with our hosting. Things like that will pay for better hosting for you, so we don't run into Potomatics problems like we did last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, check it out there, patreon.com. You can listen to us on Stitcher as well. So, Gary, we're getting into the portion of the show that I really like, our look at the standings each week, and we've had a few changes, but somehow the cream is always staying to the top here in the American League East. The Boston Red Sox still holding a pretty nice lead there at 36-17. The Yankees in second place.
Yes, certainly. And Tampa Bay hanging in there too, Rich. And they're below 500, but at least they're still in that race as well as Toronto. Baltimore's probably out of it. And the Central, Cleveland, just one game above 500. And the surprising Detroit Tigers, Rich, 3.5 games back in second place in the Central.
Yeah, they're 23-29. So, yeah, they're not out of it yet. They may be a team that might want to add something at the trade deadline here as it's creeping up on us as well. They have the LA Angels coming into town tomorrow for a 1:10 p.m. matchup there. Detroit, they're going to meet Mike Trout, one of the best players in baseball. So we'll see what happens there. Out in the West, it's still the Houston Astros leading the way out there with a 1-game lead over the surprise Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, the Angels have slipped a little bit in the last a week or so, but Oakland surprisingly is in it, and but Seattle, yeah, it's pretty surprising. They lost their big star, Robinson Cano. We talked about, and yet they won 3 in a row now, and 8-2 in their last 10. So, sometimes you lose a guy like that, and you go on a winning streak, and you wonder, do you really need all that money they spent on him?
Yeah, it's amazing to see. And as you said, the Angels still hanging in there. They sort of don't have that one missing piece. Maybe, as you said, having a guy like a big star in Trout isn't always the answer. He can't win a uh, a title by himself, a division title, and they have a big payroll. I was going over their payroll today a little earlier, and they're at about $166 million for their payroll. So they're paying a whole lot of money to Pujols, Trout, and a couple other guys, and maybe at the expense of the rest of their team. So we'll have to keep an eye out on the the AL West and the Angels, of course. Closer to home, Gary, it's the NL East, of course. Atlanta just wrestled first place back away from the Phillies. The 7-1 win this afternoon, a decisive win over one of the hottest teams in baseball, the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, and they've been hanging tough on there, but here comes the Washington Nationals, Rich, and if they get rolling, they could steamroll everybody. And Atlanta and Philadelphia are still very young, so and unexpected to be where they are. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can hang in there.
Yeah.
Especially Philadelphia with a new manager, first year manager. Be very interesting to see whether they can stay up in that top 3 race and stay close enough. I mean, now they're half a game out. Washington's only a game out though, so it's going to be fun to watch that.
Yeah, their road record, the Phillies, that is abysmal. It's 10-12. So that sort of gives you the idea of what I wrote about at fightingphillies.com today is, the Phillies have been winning. They've been finding a way to win, but they haven't been going out there and dominating teams. They've had bases loaded where they just needed to score 1 run to tie a ball game, many games, and they can't even do that. So, as you said, is it just a little bit of luck, timely hitting, and maybe some good pitching with them and the Atlanta Braves? We'll have to see. As you said, the Nationals certainly seem like they've corrected themselves. They're 17-8 on the road. They're going down to play Baltimore for a couple game series interleague matchup there for tomorrow. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And of course, you have your Mets are only 4 games back. They're still at 25-24.
Yeah, and falling fast. I know. They just do not look like a very good team, and I don't think. The other day they were 4 games above 500. Went into Milwaukee, dropped 3 out of 4 in games that they should have won 3 out of 4. To be honest with you, yesterday's game they deserved to lose. It was just pathetic. That they should have won Friday night. They should have won today, and blew leads. And there's no excuses for that. So I don't know. They need to do some major soul searching and look in the mirror and see what they can do. But moving on to the National League Central, how about Milwaukee? They're up there. They're playing well, and I'll tell you, they're getting some good pitching, especially out of their bullpen. And that's really what's made the difference from them. And they can hit. I mean, Ryan Braun, he's even a concern anymore. You might. They've got um, oh, see, my mind's going. I can't think of names. Early, the guy they got from Miami, the young kid, or fairly young. He's been in the league now, and
I know who you mean.
um, Shore at third base, who had a good series. They got that big first baseman Aguilar, who either strikes out or hits a home run. But boy, when he hits it, he hits it. So they've got something going there, I think, to be watched. And then St. Louis, of course, always there. The Cubbies are a little bit of a shocker, Rich. They're 5 games back at 26 and 22. And, they're kind of a shocker in a bad way. And then you got Pittsburgh, who's 4 games above 500. They're also 5 games back. But they're kind of a shock in the other way that people – they got rid of some key guys, Garrett Cole, Andrew McCutcheon. They're playing young guys, and they're having a decent year. Maybe the way the game is going, you dump these big name players, and you go with these young guys, and they're hungry, and teams just seem to play better.
Yeah, and that player you were reaching for was Christian Yelich. I had to look up his name, but yeah, he's one of the better players that the Brew Crew have. And yeah, as you said, there's always different ways to go about organizing a team. I don't know if throwing a bunch of young guys, but sometimes that works. The Phillies have certainly a bunch of young guys right now. A couple of them aren't really performing as well as they were or have thought that they would be. So maybe that's a reason why Phillies are sort of like hanging from the balance every game, so to speak. But I still think it's a good balance of veterans, not necessarily your Mike Trout type of veteran, but a veteran that's really going to add to the production of a team. I'm thinking like some of the Braves players are Markakis, guys that aren't like Hall of Fame type players, but they're good everyday players, and they get the job done, score runs. Freddie Freeman, that kind of guy. You bundle a couple of those players together on a team, then all of a sudden you have something.
Yeah, that's you need that balance, but sometimes you just go in the other way. And I mean, I hate to keep using the Mets as an example, but they've got a 36-year-old first baseman, a 32-year-old second baseman who doesn't have the range.
Yeah.
A 30-year-old third baseman when Todd Frazier when he wasn't hurt, and then if you put in Jose Reyes, you got a 37-year-old third baseman, and then Batista's 37 out in left field. I mean, it's just you can't go that many old guys is just not good for a team. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, as you said, you've reeled off 5 or 6 starting players. This isn't guys that are coming off the bench and things. The Phillies experienced that towards the end of their great run, 2008. They tried to string it along as far as they could. Then they realized that everybody was 34, 35 years of age. And unfortunately to us, that's not an old age, but on a baseball diamond, it is.
And they could have had a 22-year-old at first base this year and let him struggle through. They could have had, they've got a young guy at short. They could do their outfield was relatively young. I mean, when they play couple of the guys that they play, but when they play like Jay Bruce, we're up to 30, which isn't that old, but he's struggling this year. It's just you can't keep. And their bench is like half the bench is on Social Security. I mean, with Jose Reyes and now Jose Batista, and just crazy, just not constructed well at all. A team, and but if we look out west, we've got Colorado on top out there, Rich.
Yeah, topsy-turvy out west. Arizona had led the way for a long time. Now, all of a sudden, they're a game and a half back, slipped off the mark. San Francisco still staying up there at 2.5 games back. And the Dodgers haven't found themselves yet at 3.5 games back. And now the Phillies are headed out there for, I believe, a 4-game series with the Dodgers. So it'll be interesting to see which Phillies team plays out on the West Coast. This time they have 4 against the Dodgers and I believe 3 against the Giants on this road trip.
Well, West Coast trips are always tough. So it will be interesting to watch that and to see what goes on there because, like you said, you don't know what Phillies team is going to show up. We don't know what Dodgers team is going to show up as well. Is it the team from last year, or is it is this the new reality of what's going on in LA? But that should be an interesting series to keep an eye on this week.
Yes, it will. And of course, tonight's ESPN game of the night is going to be San Francisco Giants at Chicago. And hopefully, that subtropical storm we've been hearing about so much coming ashore tomorrow in Florida and Alabama area. Hopefully, that's not all the way up to Chicago yet. But good baseball tonight on the ESPN game of the night. I'm going to check that out as I continue to inundate myself with as much baseball as I possibly can, Gary.
You're going to OD on baseball this weekend, I think.
I'm going to try. I'm giving it my best shot. I've watched about 10 or 12 games in the last week, trying to get as much watching and reading and listening as I can in.
I was actually watching the ACC tournament the other day.
Oh, so you're going back to the college?
Yeah, trying to find out if there's anybody good for the draft, who's coming out, and all of that kind of stuff. So
very cool. So we'll be talking much more about the baseball draft on our next program coming up next week, and it'll be interesting to see. The MLB doesn't make as big a splash as the NFL does most of the time on that, but they do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, they do. I think baseball's a little tougher than the other drafts, the NBA and the NFL, because they're dealing a lot with college players. Though the NBA now has gone to some European players, but baseball, you've got high school players, you've got college players, so it does open it up, and it really, I mean, they do mock drafts, but we just don't get to see as much. The people don't watch college baseball like they watch college basketball, so the players are not as familiar. And then, as I said, you throw in the wild card of the high school players and stuff. It really does make it, but MLB does try to make the shows at least as a bigger production as the NFL draft or the NBA draft does.
Yes, indeed. So I'm looking ahead at the top 10 draft prospects there, and most of them are pitchers. I would say about 60% are pitchers, but there are some position players in there as well. And another thing is a lot of these players are younger, Gary. They're not going to make the big leagues for 2 to 3 years, most of them. So they don't have the same impact of an NFL player that's just going to come on a team and all of a sudden you're going to hear nothing but this guy's name every week.
Yeah, that's very true, Rich. They normally they don't go right in. They'll go to a rookie league or a short season A-League team, college guys, and you don't really hear for a couple of years. But there's a couple of guys that I'd be interested in. Really, I've been trying to follow from last year's draft, and one was Tampa Bay's #1 pick, who was a kid called Brendan McKay, who was a pitcher and a first baseman. He played in the College World Series last year. Played in the New York Penn League with the Hudson Valley Renegades. this year, I forget the team he's with. I checked out; he was having a pretty decent year. And they're letting him go both ways now. So he was one guy, and it was another guy that went both ways. I think his name escapes me as my memory loss seems to continue. But he was a pretty good prospect as well. So just keeping an eye on some of those guys. And of course, keep an eye on the Mets prospects, but that can be done very quickly because there's not many there. But yeah, it's I find it interesting to watch, even though I don't know a lot of the names. But you want to see who your team picks, and I forgot, what did you say? Where are the Phillies picking this year?
Picking third. I believe the Mets are picking seventh, if I'm not mistaken.
Mets are picking sixth.
Sixth, yeah. So that's close in, and some of these picks don't always pan out with the drafts anyway. Your usual top three picks are, somewhat pretty good, decent type of picks, but they don't always pan out either. A lot of these players don't make that connection from wherever they're playing right now and jump over to the big leagues and become big stars. So that's why I think baseball is one of your toughest sports. I mean, it's not very easy to forecast and handicap even on individual players.
Yeah, very difficult because and a lot of it is is a mind game. It's the mental side of the game. It's not the physical side of the game that really knocks down a lot of these guys. I'm sure you've seen guys play on TV in college or what, and you see all of this talent, and then you never hear anything about them again, and you wonder why. And a lot of it, we've done some interviews, and when you talk to a lot of people in the game, and it's a lot about the mental side of the game. And if you're not tough enough mental, you're not going to make it.
That's true. It's multifaceted, a long season, a lot of travel. There's a lot to be said about a long season such as the baseball season. But we're covering it for you here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. My good friend Gary Mack, you have a great week. Great week to you, and we'll be talking again on our next program.
And Rich, you do the same, and I hope all the folks out there have a great week as well.